Welcome to the What to Do podcast with Larios, where the worlds of esports, gaming, animation, and more collide with the classroom. I'm bringing you my industry connections to help you level up, get inspired, and discover future passions. So, let's get into it. Tonight, we have a heavy hitter in the building. This just ain't any guess. This is family. We've survived the late nights, the deadline chaos, the vending machine fueled critiques straight out of the Art Institutes, and we're still standing. My guest tonight, the one and only Kurtis Paddock, a visual powerhouse who carved out his name in the world of gaming, from humble beginnings to Blizzard Entertainment. This man put in the work and earned his place among gaming elites. He's a concept design beast, a 3D modeling mastermind, and a visual development veteran who has contributed to some of the biggest names in gaming. We're talking about World of Warcraft, Overwatch, Diablo, and more. Yeah, it's real. So grab your sketchbooks, a pen, pencil, paper, and maybe a cold drink, because we're diving into the journey, the mindset, the grind that took Kurtis Paddock from student to studio pro. Let's get into it. Kurtis Paddock is in the building.
All right, everybody, we're all the way live. I got my buddy, true friend, going back to art school. I got Kurtis on the pod today. Kurtis, thank you for being here with me, for taking the time. I know as parents, our time is limited to what we can stretch out throughout the day, right? But thank you for being on the pod, my dude.
Dude, my pleasure. I'm happy to be here, man. I'm glad you're doing this. Podcast ain't no easy thing, especially if you want to keep up with it and do it on a weekly to monthly basis.
I know.
You put in that work, boy. I see you working.
I know, man. I'm trying. I see you. Trying to create those memories, those connections, right?
Yes.
Like I've told people that have been on the pod so far and that I've reached out to, the whole point is that purpose of my pod is to bring the connections I have to the industry to the classroom. So you are one of my connections, and luckily we have not just that industry connection, but we have art school connection. Like we went to art school together. We were geeky nerds in our own little weird way in a square business-like building.
That's a kind way to put it. In a building that ain't even there anymore.
Yeah, no, it is. It's just,
I mean, the school ain't there, sadly. Yeah, it's ultimate. They just added more restaurants up there too.
So
yes.
Now that I have you on the pod, and I'm privileged to take up some of your time, hit us with a little bit of the lore. Who is Kurtis? Like, how did we get to this point in our lives? Like,
oh my gosh,
tell us who Kurtis is. Like,
I am a little red-headed child with freckles from day one. My mom even let me grow out my hair one time with like the fat old ponytail too.
woo!
Yeah. I was an old school nerd. Grew up in the 80s. 80s cartoons was my thing. It wasn't until I think the 90s X-Men that really kind of opened my eyes to what animation could be, and really attracted my eyes to what I think back then was my first like epiphany of this is a cool art style. But I grew up on 90s cartoons, the old Star Wars movies. But honestly, Pablo, I wanted to be a baseball player through and through.
Hey, you know what? That makes two of us.
Yeah, I wanted to play ball, some fierce. Art was never in my forefront as a kid, other than just like I liked art. I liked watching animation. I liked watching the sci-fi, Star Trek, Star Wars, Last Starfighter at that point. Yeah. I never thought of doing art as a career. I never thought about being in video games, movies. I played the heck out of Super Nintendo as a kid. Grew up as a Street Fighter 2 kid, getting my butt whooped by my older brother, by Blanca, out of all characters, most of my summers. And then his last summer before he went and left the house to move out, it was a senior year, I had spent the previous months just nailing all of Blanca's moves for Street Fighter 2. And he came back that next summer and I blew him out of the water. It was so great. I remember this vividly because he would sit there and play me as his younger brother of 7 years until I lost 50 times. That was the deal. Play me 50 times, whether you win or lose 50 times, that's it. That's our summer break together. So I beat him 50 times the last summer I got to play him. So I grew up on video games, but never wanted to be it. Played baseball all my life up until high school, the varsity thing. I did a couple of Cal State Fullerton camps. I applied for Cal State Fullerton, applied and tried out for the team at Cal State Fullerton, and I didn't make it.
Okay.
And that's where I kind of had a heart to heart with myself as far as like what I really wanted to do if baseball wasn't going to be a thing.
Okay.
And what really stuck out to me is in high school, I had to take paper drafting.
Okay.
Learn all of like how to lay out a building plan, how to do the designs, the drafts, the plan, the segmentations, all that stuff. But what would happen at the end of that class, it was basically a 4-year long drafting program that my high school provided.
So it was a little
At the
pathway for you.
It was a pathway, and the only reason I did it because I saw my older friend's brother in the last class, and they got to touch this program called 3D Studio Max.
Ooh, ew.
And what they were doing, they were taking whatever they were drafting. Let's say his final project in drawing drafting was a rocking chair.
Okay.
You learned in that last class how to take your draft drawings, your isometric, your side, your front, your top, and import those into 3D Studio Max and see a 3D model of what you just drafted out. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever. So at the time in high school, I was big into punk rock. I played drums in a punk band. So my buddy and I did my double bass pedals as our final project in drafting. And that's what got us into the 3D Studio class the next year to make my double bass pedals in 3D Studio Max. That was the beginning. I think my senior year, I had a full year of 3D Studio Max. And once I learned how to apply a physics bomb to any piece of geometry in that program and I can blow up anything I wanted, I was sold. That was my nerd thing. Like after baseball practice on weekdays, after homework, I'd mess around in 3D Studio Max for a little bit, just make like planets and make them blow up and do little quick animations and then play MechWarrior Online for hours. So when I got this news that I didn't make the Cal State Fullerton baseball team, I just instantly went back to 3D animation in 3D Studio Max. And I wanted to find out if there was some kind of school I could go to where I could learn more about 3D art. And that's where I ran into the Art Institute of Orange County and how kind of our story began. Yeah. But honestly, I had never planned to get into the career that I'm in now. I thought I was going to be a baseball player until my 30s, right? We all grow up with that naivety of, you know, this is the one thing I want to do and I'm going to get there. Like always shoot for your goals, but you never plan for, at least in my case, I didn't plan for not being able to reach that goal and then going like, well, now I got to pivot. And what do I want to pivot to? Yeah. Now the bad thing for Kurtis at this point was that I hadn't taken a lick of art classes. Like just, I was going into college with God-given talent, if you want to call it that, and just waiting for I could touch a computer because I could do the 3D art stuff, but Lord help me if I had to put a pencil to paper and try to draw something. So I went into that college experience very timid and very afraid of what my future was going to be, not knowing how to draw, not knowing anything about the theories of art, perspectives, let alone like being able to tell what an impressionist versus a cubist is, and you know all the things that go along with art school. Yeah. So yeah, that's where timid 20-year-old Kurtis found himself at the Art Institute of Orange County. I got through it with the help of my friends and teachers and mentors and blood, sweat, tears, and lack of sleep.
Yes.
Sleep. What is sleep? In your 20s, you don't need sleep. I have vivid memories that you were probably in this class, or I know you took this damn class, but color theory. Woo. Let's talk about color theory for a second.
I loved color theory, learning that I sucked at painting.
It's like that making swatches. That's how I felt that whole class was. It's like, we're not learning color, we're learning how to make swatches.
And like, yeah, we had like an incredible teacher, but it was not my thing. Like now I do colors.
To this day, I don't think I ever saw a single piece of artwork Mr. Alan Buhner did. Like, yeah. He never brought anything in. It was all just him and what's that book he made us read about the Russian impressionist? Chomsky or not Chomsky?
No.
Anyway, so yeah, had many classes where you had to make 158 color swatches, and I'd stay up 24 hours the whole night trying to paint swatches and tape them off all nice and neat, because if they weren't neat, you get marked off. So yeah, I graduated. Somehow graduated. 3 years is the accelerated program. We could talk more about what that means.
Yeah.
But got a bachelor's in computer science, focused on media arts and animation. And I immediately got a job at a paper company. Not even a paper company. It was an art supply store, but I was working in the paper department.
Okay.
So I was selling canvas, vellum, cardstock, whatever type of weighted paper. Pablo, I got you. You got it. You want it. I'll never forget the first time I had to cut a piece of canvas for a customer. I pulled it out, cut it off the big like roll, and then he wanted it a certain size that I had to then like take the ruler and do the razor thing cut. My first razor cut, what do? I leave my finger over it and just think, and I'm profusely bleeding over this dude's brand new canvas. Just, let me get you a new one, sir. I'll be right back. So I was awesome at that job. But during that time, I am scouring the internet at that point, looking for anyone that has job openings for an animator.
Which, if you think about it, like scouring the internet back then isn't what we have now.
Oh no!
So it was
a lot of these studios didn't even have websites you could look up career jobs at. I vividly remember, I don't know if you were in this group, but I think it was myself, we Dan, Richie Morella, maybe Eric David, not Eric Davis. What's Eric's last name? Concept artist. Escaping me. But we did a whole like cold drive and drop where we, recorded our portfolios on VHS tape. Kids, look up that on the internet, what VHS tape is. And then we went to studios and just would cold drop off our resume, a cover letter, and a VHS tape and say, if you got any openings, awesome, later, and just go to the next studio. So we did that for months. I think I worked at Pearl Art Store, was the name of that place, for 8 months. And in that time, I had found this studio that was hiring for what was called a night crew tester, to test an unreleased product, whatever that was. And for me to apply, I had to basically give them a resume, a cover letter, and then give them at least a 1-page description / review of a game that I was playing at that point. Okay.
So what were you playing at that point? Because if I remember us in the lab,
surprisingly enough, it wasn't a first-person shooter. We played a lot of Soldier of Fortune. We played Warcraft 3. I was playing, I'm not sure the full title, but it was a Lord of the Rings game on the PC where you would it was basically built like your character was the most powerful as long as you were keeping like a combo chain and always hitting somebody and not blocking. You could play the elf, the human, the dwarf, and you kind of switched off. I can't remember the name. It was the Lord of the Rings game, but it was a third-person style game, not first-person at all. And I just basically wrote up a art review on it, like what I liked lighting-wise, what I liked animation-wise, what I liked character art-wise, and just kind of went down my shtick of here's everything that I did in art school. Let me just kind of talk about it from the game point of view. And I got a phone call interview from a company named Blizzard. The phone call interview was ridiculous. I think they're basically just making sure I'm not a crazy person. Back then, this was all different. This wild west times back then. Past the phone interview, I had to come in for a face-to-face interview. At this time, Blizzard was over by UC Irvine. Just a one building shtick, maybe 100 people in that building. I get in and regular interview stuff. You're just kind of asking about my background, which at that point was nothing except for college and working at an art store. So they kind of focused in more on my art skills, on what I knew art-wise and how it related to the game. After that was done, this was a 2-hour interview, by the way. The first hour is the talk. The second hour is you're doing a test. So they sat me down in front of an old PC, and basically loaded up a Warcraft 3 Frozen Throne map. And they're like, okay, here's what you're going to do. You're going to open up the map, you're going to play it, and you're going to write all the bugs you find on it. Okay. And I had never written a bug before in my life. I let alone know what a bug is in a video game. At that point, I'm sure a bug to me was a good exploit I was using. Whether it was Blanca's electricity at the short corner, or if it was some BS move where you're doing like the spinning attack every 2 seconds. Those are probably bugs, but I didn't know. So anyways, I go through this map and I write down they were probably all art bugs, to tell you the truth, that I was pointing out, and just wrote them out as clear as I could possibly think. They're asking you to write down steps to probably see how your communication is and how you are able to break down what the bug is, how to reproduce the bug, and being able to show just like grammatically, can you get there?
Okay.
So I do all that and leave. And then I get a call back a week later saying I got the job. Awesome. They tell me that the job is a night shift job and it starts at 7 p.m. and ends at 4 a.m.
Woo!
And at 21, I'm like, yeah, sure. That sounds great. Again, what's sleep at that age?
Well, ours already prepped us for that.
Our school did prep us, but you know what they didn't prep me for?
Here we go, everybody.
This is what they did not prep me for, is they did not prep me for the fact that because World of Warcraft, this is the product that I got to work on, the original, was shipping in less than a year when I got onto the team. They were doing OT on Saturday, Sundays. I had to look up what OT was at that point, but overtime, meaning they wanted all of their testers, which is now what I just become, working on that game 7 days a week, 8 hours a day, sometimes 12 hours a day. But what I didn't think and what I didn't realize until the first Saturday I pulled this is that they don't have a night shift on Saturday and Sunday. They want me to come in on the day shift time. So I would work Friday, 7 p.m. to 4 a.m., come in Saturday at 10 a.m., work till 4 p.m., do that Sunday again, and then have to flip my switch back Monday night to 7 p.m. to 4 a.m. and start my week over again. And I did that for 8 months straight, dog. 8 months of flipping back and forth every 5 days. At first, I thought it was cool because I was getting my laundry done, all my errands ran in the day because ain't nobody doing any of that stuff because everyone's regular at work.
Yeah.
And then slowly these black circles started to create and form under my eyeballs. Yeah. Just worked me to the bone. But I got to really get thrown into what game development is like. I had never tested on the game before, let alone an MMO RPG. I didn't even know what an MMO was when I got in there. The guy that onboarded me my first night, who is still there, is now a producer on Diablo 4. He sits me down. I load into the game. I run around the first, 1 through 10 level zone. He goes, okay, now we're going to transfer servers and go to the other world. And I stopped it right there. I was like, what are you talking about? Transferring servers to the other world? What are you? It's like, oh yeah, so there's 2 worlds in this game. You got, Kalimdor, and I can't think of the other one. People are going to kill me on this. But the other side, and you load servers depending on what side you are. Server 0 is this side, server 1 is this side. And these are all debug tools that I'm using to kind of port my way around the world to check on bugs. And the first week I was lost. I had no idea what I was doing because, again, I've been doing headshots on people in Counter-Strike for years and playing Blanca for the last decade and a half. I've never touched an MMO.
And I don't know, if you think about it, by the time we're playing it, all the bugs have been fixed.
Yeah, and
so
what? Fixed indeed. I think WoW was public beta shortly after I joined the team, so I got to experience a beta launch. And playing on live servers while you're still a developer, be able to do cheats and see things kind of behind the scenes. But that was the first game I got to ship, was World of Warcraft OG, which is kind of a blessing and a big notch under my belt. I felt like, not knowing it then, of course, but now 21 years later, um, very lucky to get on that project and kind of learn from that ground up and see what that project did to a company. That project blew everything up. And truthfully, the QA department, the week after we launched World of Warcraft, we thought we were fired, because we did not anticipate the server load and the amount of people that were going to play that game. So we didn't have the servers up, or say we didn't have enough servers up for the numbers of people coming in. So if you load into the game the day of release, a couple hours after release, and you killed a wolf at the starting zone and you went down to loot that wolf, your character was stuck in a kneeling position for 5 to 10 minutes. And you can't do anything. You can't click out of it because the server is trying to load what loot table you just rolled on that wolf. But there's so many people trying to access that loot table. The server's like, just wait, it's coming. So we all thought we were dead because we thought it was a bug. Yeah. We thought we missed this critical issue, and everyone's looking around on the floor of QA going like, was that you? Did you test that? That it wasn't me. I was testing quests the whole time. So we're all blaming each other, and so waiting for the phone call. Yeah, we're waiting for the punishment of the producer to come down. But we come to find out that it was just server issue. So yeah, that's my first project working at Blizzard, and it's been chaos ever since. 21 years later,
it's been a good chaos.
It's been a good chaos.
21 years, and they've taken.
It's been a good chaos.
You're still there, so
there's bumps and bruises, man. I've survived 7 layoffs now at that company. I don't know why they're keeping me around, but I just keep ducking them.
Getting something right, my dude.
I hope so. But yeah, it's been a whirlwind. I guess hopefully that's a little bit of my lore that gets you to know me a little bit. Yeah. Long-winded lore. That's what you said up front, right?
Yeah, long-winded. So you guys all got the lore now. You guys all know.
Yeah.
Downs of Kurtis in a smidge of a
so many damn
long conversation.
Yeah.
We're gonna continue because why not, right? So you talked about the idea that it was, I guess you could say it was the competition between you and your brother that kind of kickstarted this unknown passion, right? So, and I only got technically you answered this question because it's like what sparked that moment for you. But again, it was, if we go back and reflect to the lore, the Street Fighter beatdowns.
It's definitely a big part of it.
Yeah.
And, you're making me think back. Like, I think I was lucky and blessed that my dad, who owned the company that he was working for at this point, him and his partner, there's only 2 people in this company. Basically, they created vinyl stickers and put them on big rig trucks.
Oh, cool. Rips.
Right? Exactly. They called them decals back in the 80s. So I remember at a young age, my dad and his partner investing all this money in buying like a plotter so that they could sit at that point on a Windows 3.0 computer. Yeah, when Mahjong was the thing. And they would do their graphic, their text and their font in almost like a paint-like program. But this is the default software that comes with this new plotter they just bought. And it would allow them to do all of the rasterizing and what's the word I'm looking for? Not rasterizing, but what's the Illustrator version? Vector-based, thank you. All the vectoring and smoothing out text and corners so that when the plotter would cut it out, it wouldn't make jagged edges and be all nice and straight. Yeah. So from a young age, my dad was into computers with his work, and he bought me my first computer, I'm going to say like 8 or 9, and it was like the old yellow screen, no other colors but yellow. Yeah. It had 2 games on it, Wheel of Fortune and Oregon Trail. Yeah. So I kind of got a hint of video game PC wise because of my dad buying that machine and getting us our first little dot matrix printer. That was so loud. Oh, it was so loud.
And then the weird tears on the side that you had to.
Yeah, the stupid bubble tape, like the I think I was 6th or 7th grade because I was doing like reports and stuff at that point. I think that's why my parents bought it, because I was printing out reports. using the Encyclopedia Britannica, old school throwback. Yeah, look that one up, kids. So he got me involved in technology. I wasn't even thinking about it. Yeah. And so
So we just added to the lore.
I think so. I think my parents in the long run were like the first spark because they also, my mom and dad bought me a Game Boy for Christmas when it came out.
Okay.
So what year was that? 89?
89,
The 90s?
Yeah. Early 90s for sure.
And I remember when I opened it and I put Tetris in and I showed my mom and dad this game, they were like, why is it not in color? What?
Green screen.
Well, because to them, they just invested $100-something bucks on this thing and it's black and white.
Yeah.
So you know what they did? They made me pack up my Game Boy, return it, and they got me a Sega Game Gear because Sega Game Gear was color at that point.
Yeah.
So I was a Game Gear kid. I didn't even have a Game Boy because it wasn't color. My parents were like, no, forget that. You got to play something in color for spending that type of money. So they were always kind of putting technology in my hands without me like ever asking for it. I don't remember like being a kid asking for a Nintendo. They would just get me these things because they were awesome. And I just was lucky to be involved in it. And I had the Nintendo Entertainment System. So a lot of Super Mario Brothers with my parents, or my mom and I playing Super Mario Brothers as a kid.
Yeah.
Duck Hunt. I spent hours on. So I think I'm gonna give my parents a lot of credit on that one for just putting technology in my face and getting me going on it.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So we have it, man. The lore. We added to the lore, and we discovered that mom and dad actually silently triggered the passion.
They did. I blame them.
Here, try this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Little did they know when they told me to go outside and play more baseball that video games was the way to go.
The kids say now, go touch some grass.
Go breathe some fresh air. Yeah.
So, all right, let's throw it back, right? Not to necessarily back into your lore, but let's go back to art school.
Yeah.
So, I've come to realize in my maturity that, you might be able to agree with this, that we should probably take in advantage of the opportunities we had. Because it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. Like I was first class of the school, and then you came right after me. So we saw the ups and downs, and a lot of downs, but we were given opportunities. We had some amazing people to teach us, right?
Yeah.
So I go back and reflect, and like I said, I think that we probably should have taken advantage of the situation that we had in our hands. Like being in our early 20s, we're still experiencing life, not knowing that these opportunities are epic.
Yeah.
And now I reflect back and I'm like, dang, it's not that it was terrible. We didn't know what we had in front of us to take advantage of it. Like,
no,
really. So like I tell my students now, when they get themselves into high school, or they find that cool teacher that like shares with them, to pick their brains. Cause like, I don't know how many times like we would sit in Mike Tracy's class and just talk and like pick his brain. Or you remember Dan Guerin?
Yeah.
Our life drawing teacher, and then pick his brain as much as he wanted us to be as good as Glenn Keane. But
Sean is versed. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But like,
he was so good shooting that.
Taking advantage of opportunities.
So Joe Weatherly.
Ooh, that guy. He actually still teaches locally. So he's still doing.
Every time I look at a horse, all I can think of is a tombstone because of that guy. That's all I could think of. The chest. That's the tombstone. Every time I call it that, G.
So, how would you, I know this is like a sensitive subject for us, but how would you rate your experience? Like, what was there any like one or two lessons from our art school experience that still stick with you today?
Yep. Yep. So I mentioned that I did not take any formal drawing classes or anything before going to art school. I thought I was a decent drawer because why? When I was a kid, I would take like the old school Marvel trading cards and try to copy like Hawkeye and Cyclops and try to just trace it. But fundamentals of drawing, shading, perspective, contour, I had knew nothing about.
Yeah.
And I will never forget my first life drawing class with a teacher named Ann Fong.
Ooh. Yes.
This professor, I learned my first experience with a professor who would give it to you straight.
Yes. I love
There
that
was
part.
no filter. There was just raw emotion, and she would tell you what she thought of where you're at in your skill.
Yes.
And I was a real easy target. And I remember that my first life drawing class, they give you a big, what would you say, is a 19 by 12 pad of newsprint,
I think it's like a 24.
18 by 24,
Yeah, it's pretty big.
large,
Yes, large.
right? Poster size. I used to draw this big on that little newsprint, and she would walk around and be like, she would slap my paper, pop, 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 draw bigger. I can draw a car around your drawing. Draw bigger. Look at the shapes and draw them bigger. And she would, I don't know how many times she would tell me to draw bigger in that first class, but it was multiple times. At the end of that, what did we do? We didn't do semesters. So we did quarters.
Quarters.
So at the end of that quarter, she sat me aside, was like, look, I don't think animation's for you, kid. Yeah, flat out. Like, I don't think the drawing skills that you have is going to get you where you think you're going to go. I don't think that animation should be the career that you go for. And left me with that after the end of the class.
Damn.
Yeah, bro, I stewed on that because I already felt like I was lacking something when I got in there, and I was just like, F it, just get me to a computer animation class where I'm working on the computer art and I can show you what I can do.
Yeah.
But I had to get through a full year of nothing but art, 2D, pen, paper, paint, marker, pastel, shit that I never did as a kid, ever thought about like, oh, a human being is really just broken down into shapes? What? Like, I never would have thought of something like that. Okay.
Like,
There's
students like look at me weird when I tell them that everything is like a cylinder or circle or square.
100%.
They're like, what? I'm like, here, let me show you. Let me draw Bart Simpson for you real quick. They're like, what?
It's like showing how the sausage is made. Like, I never forget my first cinematography class when they go over like, this is a wide shot, this is a close-up. Like, I never looked at a movie just saying again. I'm like, wide shot, close-up, 3/4.
Yeah.
You know, it kills a lot of the movie magic for you.
It does.
For sure.
It does. My daughter says I hate watching movies with you, or I dislike watching movies with you because you know the shot and you can tell what's going to happen in the story before it even happens. I'm like, hey, I was trained.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Foreshadowing is real. So yeah, that really sat with me. And I think that I wish in hindsight, I would have sat with Anne more.
Yeah.
And just let her at some point, can you just put your hand on top of my hand and I'll move with yours? Right. Because, going back to Sean and going back to Joe, like at our class, at our school, we took life drawing, I think every quarter almost, or if not, we had the opportunity to go in to draw whatever we wanted. And so we would just get a habit as 20-year-old kids just to go in because we had nothing else to do. I didn't have anything else to do. And I would just try to draw to learn and would get these instructors who were just light years ahead of where I thought I could ever be.
Yeah.
And I really wish I'd done that more. I think that we were pretty good. You compare it to the average college student. I think you and I in our group, we were strong enough where like we were pushing each other and supporting each other to do those things.
Yeah.
But if you don't have that support system to be like, hey, we really just to keep working. Like, I know you think once we get out of college, we're done.
Yeah.
This is now 40-year-old me talking to 20-year-old me, but the learning never stops.
I'll always be learning.
Was I ready when I came out of art school? Hell no. 21-year-old me thought, though, yeah, I can get any animation job out there right now. Why is no one calling me back?
Yeah.
And so what I tell students now too is like, don't be afraid to apply to something that you may not think you should be doing, but it could be a foot into the door where you want to be. So on top of just not taking advantage of more life drawing for me and more just fundamental art principles, I think about what I'm having an issue with on my oldest right now. As a parent, you want your kid to be excited about what they're doing. And when it comes to a sport, You want them to have that drive to be good and to focus and be coachable. But I'm noticing now that what I noticed about me as a kid playing baseball is I didn't realize I needed to be like, do my reps at practice and then go home and hit 100 times off the tee just to keep doing it and be good and be dedicated. And I want my daughter to do that, but she doesn't have that switch hasn't turned on.
Yeah.
And I felt like in my art school, that switch didn't turn on either until I was already out of school. Like, I don't have these resources now where I can just go back and spend 8 hours a day just life drawing. Now I got a job I got to do, a house I got to pay for, kids I got to pay for. Like, all that extra time I wish I would have put towards stuff like that, I can't do anymore. So I wish that I would have spent more time in the lab just learning how to make a rose animate properly. It's just simple things like walk cycles, bouncing balls, 2-point perspective versus a 3-point perspective, and all those fundamental things that, I'm supposed to just know hardwired now. I wish I would spend more time at school with. I do feel like because we were such the guinea pigs in that program, we were kind of already had our backs against the wall because that school was figuring out what professors they should be putting in there to make things work. And we went through a couple of stinkers where we were kind of teaching ourselves more than we were actually learning from the professor, which brings up the second point. Go ahead.
Okay. Which is technically we still teach ourselves.
100%. And that's something that students should think about now, is that just because the teacher tells you something, it doesn't mean that it's the right way, but it's a way to do something. In art, at least in art.
Yeah.
But you should take it upon yourself to try other methods and learn more about it on your own and see what you really like about this method versus method B. You might have learned on YouTube or saw a Twitch streamer do it, whatever it might be.
Which is and because by that method, you might even develop a quicker way to do it. That just flows. So,
yep.
I love the advice.
Yeah, man. Just again, as we get older, I just wish I had more time at that young age to smack myself around and be like, "Look, wake up and see where you're at. This is the time to do it." But I'm very fortunate that I ended up befriending you and and Richie and all of these great 2D artists and 3D artists.
And you said I'm great,
brother. I mean,
dude, I've been putting in work.
You just don't know how much I looked up to y'all just because of the skill of the pencil and pen. You know what I mean? Like I still can't. I'm better than what I was, but I still a rough work in progress.
I always tell the story that going into art school, and you kind of brought this up too with how you felt about drawing. Like it was seeing what was around us and what they could do with the pencil. Is like we were thrown into a Shark Tank.
Yeah, I'm looking at you, Richie,
to survive. And I even mentioned this on a LinkedIn post, and Thomas Jung was like, wow, for you to realize that and to be okay with that and to push through, he's like, wow. I was like, man, why didn't you ever hire me? Not just kidding.
Dude, I'm so thankful for Thomas Jung. Like, he was another one that told me, like, are you sure animation's what you want to do, stupid? Because I'm looking at your line work like, what the hell, how'd you even get in here? But he would always push me, and he would always challenge me and push me to that next level where I thought I could never get to. And he'd sit there and tell me stories about how he started off in card design, if I'm not mistaken. I think card illustration was with his start. Then he got into video games, and he introduced me to gouache. He was gouache everything, Mr. Gouache. But I know the professor of going into that topic of like what I wish I could have done, that I wish I could have just sat and shadowed that dude for 5 days a week.
Yeah.
And just watch you draw and then try to mimic what he was doing. As much as students listening to this might not think that drawing affects 3D animation, oh, it does.
Yeah.
I was one of those non-believers, but as you go through it, you really see how much drawing and anatomy and knowledge of anatomy and posing and weight really affect your animation 100%.
It all ties into those principles that they knocked us in the head with.
Yeah.
Bouncing ball.
The bouncing ball, the candle wick, the pendulum, Pinocchio. Remember Pinocchio? Man, we had a full quarter on what I felt was like a never-ending Pinocchio story.
I know. But like, again, like we reflect on, we had some amazing opportunities, and I'm glad that I'm not like, now that I'm mature, that like we both mature, that we both realize that there's moments we should have taken advantage of, and it wasn't the school's fault. It was us not knowing, right? Because we were young and I guess stupid.
Yeah, stupid, naive,
Yeah.
eager to get out and do our thing.
Yeah. Which, like you said, you got through the program. You thought you could do any animation job. But whoa, and I was the same way. Like I applied, got rejected, and it hurt.
Yeah,
It definitely hurt. So it's gonna hurt, kids.
yes, it is. Don't ever listen to those college recruiters when they say 95% placement rate. That is individual to how much work you put in.
Yeah.
And not to speak for Pablo, but for myself, when I came out of AI, I was not an animator that was ready for an animation gig.
No, the same. The same. I realized that wrapping up my my internship on The Simpsons, that when I was working on King of the Hill, some of those angles I wasn't ready for in animation. And drawing The Simpsons, who again we talk about basic shapes, to drawing the King of the Hill characters, which are still basic shapes, just a little bit more rigid. It was I wasn't ready. And now I can admit that it's not FOMO, it's none of that. It's just I now know that I needed more work on my own, not through the school, on my own. Like we have to put in the work.
Yeah. And it never ends.
Yes.
I've got a good failure to talk about on that one. So I felt like I failed upwards in this case. So I've now been working in quality assurance on World of Warcraft for shoot, I got to think about this. I've just gotten through Burning Crusade. They just moved me over to work on StarCraft Ghost. Worked on StarCraft Ghost. That game got canceled. Went back to World of Warcraft. Wrath of the Lich King was in work. Wrath of the Lich King. So Wrath of the Lich King is in development, and the cinematics department has an opening for StarCraft 2 artists.
Okay.
And the opening that they had was for facial animator. And I was like, F it, yeah, I'll give you a try on facial animation, sure. I throw my hat in, and they interview me. I actually got all dressed up to the nines, collared shirt and everything for cinematics. You kidding me? Was it cinematics was to interview me? You're getting my best, boy. I spiked my hair and everything. Had an interview with two of their producers, not even an artist in the room. In hindsight, two producers talking about my prior experience, what I know, what I've worked on from QA perspective, and had I ever heard of a program called Face Effects? Like, nothing. Never heard of it. Well, they gave me the opportunity, and what they did was they gave me basically an internal internship where they laterally moved me to the cinematics team for 6 months as a trial.
Okay.
And after that 6 months, they can choose whether to let me go back in the QA group or hire me full-time in cinematics.
Okay.
And I got hired full-time in cinematics, just animating this much of the face, only this much from the nose down on on every single line for every single StarCraft 2 expansion, from Wings of Liberty to whatever the last Protoss one was called. I can't even think of the name of it. But I spent 4 years just animating mouths, and that's how I got my first foot in the door for animation. Not even animating a full character, just animating an eighth of a character.
Nose to mouth, man.
Nose to mouth. Now, in that time, speaking of not even FOMO, but let's talk about imposter syndrome.
Okay,
this is my first animation gig ever from going to school. Now I'm out of school. Been out of school for 5 or 6 years at this point, getting my gig in Blizzard Cinematics out of all the departments. And as I'm going around meeting all of these animators, it's like, hi, nice to meet you. 15 years at Sony. Hi, nice to meet you. 20 years at Blue Sky. Hi, nice to meet you. I've been animating at Blizzard for 15 years on all pre-rendered cinematics you could think of. And I'm just like, I've worked on nothing. I've tested some games called World of Warcraft. Didn't do any animations. You want to see my awesome robot I made in Art Institute that can't do a real walk cycle? I had the biggest imposter syndrome. Like, what am I doing here? Like, out of just over my head. but I survived. I kept my head afloat, I'll say. But there came a point that students, you're going to come to this point too in your careers where I had done all the facial animation work and they weren't going to do anymore. StarCraft 2 is done. All the expansions are done. So now Cinemax is like, now can you animate a full character, Kurtis? Ooh. And I went, oh, I can animate this all day now, but you want to give me a full now I got to revert back to school and like fundamentals. Like everything starts at the center of gravity, and then from there you animate out because everything from the center of gravity is affecting that. And my art director, my animation supervisor gave me a month before they gave me my first character just to practice on our rigs. And I took Nova because she was near and dear to my heart because of StarCraft Ghost. And I just did a walk cycle with Nova. And I did it, and it took me a week. And he came back and was like, all right, now do it in 3 days.
Oh,
Okay, so I went the next week and I did it in 3 days. Like, all right, now do it in a day. And it was just like, he wanted me to know it, learn it, but faster. Because walk cycles are walk cycle, and we're not going to be doing a lot of walk cycles in the shots. And half the time, what happens is the best animator who does walk cycles will do the walk cycles for all the characters, and you'll just copy and paste their animations if you have a walk cycle in your shot. So you're really focused on everything but the walk cycle. But fundamentally, the walk cycle is everything for a character. The walk cycle is how you're going to present attitude, personality, character. Not every character is just going to walk like this. Like Nova ain't walking like this. Like she's a bad. I know you did QA back in the day, and I was like, I just need a job. I just bought a house, had my first kid. Like QA sounds great. So I went back into QA, only by the grace that my buddy that I originally started with in QA now 10 years ago at this point, is now like a lead and a manager in the QA department. He's like, he saw my name on a inquiring list. He's like, why the hell is Kurtis Paddock on this list to get back into QA? Get him in here. If he's coming in here, like get him in here because he knew my work from back in the day, right? So by the grace of him, I got my interview, got hired on what was called the Burst team. And the Burst team at that point in Blizzard was like the internal outsource team. So if any project like World of Warcraft was coming out with a patch, let's say, but they had a whole bunch of testing they needed to get done, they would call in the help of the Burst team to come over for a couple of weeks to be like, hey, here's a bunch of test cases we need run, go. And Burst team would just pick up whatever we need to do, learn all the debug codes, and just go to town. But we would switch projects every other week. So one day I'm on World of Warcraft, next week I'm on Overwatch, next week I'm on Diablo Immortal, testing on the phone. Next week I'm on an unannounced project. We also did unannounced projects too. So it was cool to kind of see the whole buffet. But eventually I got called by one of my leads who moved over to Diablo 4. And he's like, hey, I need someone who knows art and animation specifically. Would you be interested in coming over to Diablo 4 and be a test analyst for animation? I'm like, fuck yeah, dog, I got you. Animation is no problem. No problem. So I interviewed with the Diablo 4 team, got onto there, and the day I get onto it, he pulls me to the office and goes, look, I know I told you animation, but we feel that animation is too easy for you, and we need somebody to test the VFX in this game. There's thousands of VFX in Diablo. In fact, it's 3 teams VFX. There's a open world team, an encounters team, and a classes team. And this analyst needed to cover all 3 teams and test everything that these 3 teams are putting in. So they asked me, they hoodwinked me and then switched me to VFX the minute I got into D4. So I worked on VFX for a year and a half. Released the base game of Diablo 4, and then I interviewed for a test lead spot, and that's where I'm at now. So I'm a test lead who manages all of the testers testing the games and the outsourcing crews. I was a lead on the last expansion we did was Vessel of Hatred, and now they've got me doing all the seasons and live support stuff now. So I've pretty much come full circle from when I started. But now QA is such a different beast than where it was when I started. Like, again, it was like wild, wild west. We were testing we had test cases on paper when I first started this company. Not everything was online based. I tell kids that, these kids are in their 20s getting their first job in the industry. And I'm like, hey, I used to mark stuff off with pen and paper. Like, we would have to do keyboard binding checklists. This was awful, Pablo. This was awful. This was awful. They would basically hand you a printout of the keyboard, and you would have to go through and assign, like, I need to assign walk to escape. I need to assign walk to F1. I need to assign walk to F2. I need to go down the full keyboard to make sure you can assign different movements, different keyboard bindings. And that was your entire 8-hour shift.
Dang. And if you think about that work you did, your team did, is why we can program our keys when we game now.
Yep.
Or else you just like, you have to use these keys. There is no, let me customize my keyboard to play better. It just,
yeah. 20-year-old me is like, what idiot is binding walk to escape button? First of all. I have all the things I'm testing. Walk on escape, huh? All right, whatever. It's your money. You pay me.
You look at my keyboard differently now.
Brother. You knew if you were on the UI team that night, you had some good key binding checklists, and wow. That is for sure. So yeah, that's my full circle at Blizzard now. So now I'm back in QA, not even touching. Well, I don't touch art. I don't make art, but I do work with artists every day. And I am responsible for making sure that what they implement is working in game. So it's almost like I get to tell them that their stuff is broken and they get to go fix it. So I'm living my art director life through QA right now.
Yeah. That's awesome, dude. Like, damn. Like,
yeah, it's been a whirlwind, my friends.
I know. And I'm glad I had this opportunity to schedule you in and have this conversation. Cause man, like, I know you've been through the ups and downs of what Blizzard's been going through the last few years, and to find time to actually have a conversation now, because it's been a minute. It's crazy because, yeah, it was 5-6 years ago you came into my classroom and you talked to the kids.
I was just going to ask when that was.
Yeah, I want to probably say 5-6 years.
Okay.
Now we're like, we added another 5 years to that, and now we're like talking on the stream.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's recorded for everyone to watch later.
That's right. Yeah, now I'm all armored up too. I got my helmet last year from Blizzard for hitting 20 years.
Does it fit?
No, it fits my 9-year-old though.
Okay.
Yeah. It'll be a necklace for my 5-year-old. But right now I've got it sitting on my desk at work as a power move.
Okay.
So you come over to talk to me, I'll just like next to my monitor is a big helmet next to me. How you doing? Yeah, I've been here a while. Yeah, what's up?
Why are you bothering me?
What experience can I tell you about? Yeah, it's a trip.
All right. Cool. So, man, it's cool to hear the story, man. It really is. Like, wowzers.
Yeah, kids, students, you're going to face adversity in your career, especially if your career ends you up in video games. Despite popular belief, making video games is hard as hell. And it takes a lot of people to communicate and work together to make those games the awesome products that you all love. So,
which is funny because I was about to go into the advice for students, and you've been giving advice this whole time, dude. I haven't even had to ask. Like, it's just naturally the advice has been going through there, man. So it's crazy to.
I'm fully embracing my manager leadership side.
Yeah, like wowzers, like guys, this is my dude right here. This
dude
has been through it, and
you asked me if I ever wanted to be a manager 5 years ago, I would have showed you a couple fingers. Like, I don't want to be responsible for anyone's career. Like, I'm looking out for numero uno. Yeah. Like, yeah, I'm going to support my team and help my team myself, but you tell me what to do, I'm going to do it. Like, I'll get it done no matter what. And my boss at the time was still a senior analyst, was trying to mentor me and like, I think you can be a good lead. I know you have it in you to be a good manager. Yeah. We just need to pull it out and flip the switch. And you, Kurtis, needs to see exactly flip the switch. Yeah. And you know what made me realize I wanted to be a manager? What? Twitch.
Oh,
Twitch. I would stream animation back when I was doing it more often. And I'd get students that come in and ask questions about how you got in the industry. Oh, what do you think of my demo reel? What do you think I could do about X, Y, and Z? Some people would come in already in the industry. Hey, I've got an issue with a stakeholder. How would you deal with this situation? And I would just start giving free advice on Twitch. And I realized that it wasn't until I had an individual who was coming into my stream, I would say every time for a good solid year or two when I was doing it during COVID. And I got to experience the kid without a job, beginning his search of wanting to be an animator, going through his demo reel, researching how to animate walk cycles, showing me all this stuff, applying, and then getting his first job in the industry, and how thankful he was to me that I got him in there. And I was like, what, kid? I didn't do anything for you. Like, I just gave you some ideas on how to get there. But it really made me think, like, maybe this is what my boss is talking about. Because I got that feeling of like, that feels good.
Yeah.
Like, I love that I was able to help you get to the dream that you were looking for unintentionally. I wasn't like trying to get you there, but I was giving you as much support as I could from, whatever 3,000 miles away I am via Twitch and where he's at.
Yeah.
But that really kind of sparked me like, oh, this is the feeling that managers get when they help people, maybe. And that kind of set me off into wanting to look more into doing leadership and management roles. So yeah, now here I am. This is year 3 of being a lead.
Nice.
I don't think I'm quite not a rookie still. I still feel like I'm the rookie in this lead spot, and I've got a lot to learn. But it's been a different hat to wear for sure.
Nice.
Which I think is like gotta be in a teacher too. Like, you got a lot of the support and the love that you're showing those kids every day. Like, that's a whole nother thing. That's even more than being a manager, I think.
Oh man, which is crazy. It's crazy. Like, you instilled that inspiration to someone via Twitch.
Mm-hmm.
I do it I try to do it. Like, I'm gonna say I do it every day, but it's more like I try, because everyone's story is different every day. Like, we don't know the battles, so we try.
Yep.
So since I have you on here, let's throw out some more advice.
Yeah.
Because
Turn on my fan when I do that. So getting hot in here all night talking. I'm a mouth breather. I apologize.
it's okay. No one can hear the Darth Vader. But like, kids, like you said, designing a video game, doing a video game is not a simple task. It takes a lot of people, right? So I always reflect back at this when I think back at art school and some of our teachers and stuff like that. And that piece of paper that we got at the end of the whole journey, right? Is the college degree necessary, or can a strong portfolio get you in the door if you've done your due diligence yourself on the side?
I just had this talk with the high school group that came in. I think depending on your discipline, I'll speak for more of the animation side. I think a strong portfolio is definitely going to get you a job for sure. It's going to get you into the door. Depending on what your interview skill is like. If you come off as a mean, terrible person, you're not going to work anywhere. But
True.
If you've got decent interview skills or a decent person with a strong portfolio and no college degree, this career has a lot of that. Now, do I think that you're better off if you have a college degree? Yes. I think the college degree shows a lot of things. It shows dedication to your craft, commitment to something, whatever discipline it is, and follow through and completion. There's a lot of artists that don't have follow through and completion. It's very easy to start. I can't tell you how many unfinished files I have on my computer of unfinished animations. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot to say about commitment and follow through. And I think showing that you've been through a college degree, college program, and you stuck through it all the way, completed it, and got your degree, I think it says a lot more about the person than someone who didn't take any college, just has the God-given talent or YouTube learn talent, whatever it might be. It does show that you are coachable as a person. I don't know personality-wise until you get into the studio, sadly, but I think if I'm looking at 2 resumes that are exactly the same for the same position, but one of them has a college degree and another one doesn't, I'm going to talk to the college degree first.
Okay.
I'm sure going to talk to the person that doesn't, just to see like where you at headspace wise. This is a personality that we can work with. But I'm going to talk to the person with the degree first, because of those multiple things of like what you're showing by just having that degree. By the time students in your class get to where we're at now, will brick and mortar schools even be a thing?
Yeah, I know.
I don't know, right? I feel like online certificates are kind of doing the same thing that our degree did for us.
Yeah.
Like you can go to Nomon, you can go to Animation Mentor, and all of those certificates, though aren't college degrees, are still held high in this career for sure.
Then you just answered another question unintentionally, dude. Like,
oh, awesome!
You like Jedi mind tricking me right now, like
awesome.
Yeah.
You just feed me well.
About resources, and you just tossed out No Man.
Oh yeah. I got lots of resources.
Skillshare and
Skillshare, Agora. Check out Agora. animschool.com or .org. They've got a lot of free rigs you can use. I'll shout out Twitch channels too. If you don't know, oh shoot, now I'm spacing. I have to look at my own Twitch list. I don't know who's doing animation streams anymore. It's been a minute since I've been on there. Yeah. You can throw out mine, but I haven't, again, streamed in a while. I want to get back into it again. It's in the back of my head. I am just in that dad mode right now where I feel like, we were talking about this before the podcast, if I'm not sleeping or if I've got extra time, I probably should be sleeping because of my my young kids are keeping me busy all the time right now. But I do want to get back into animation. So if you want to look up Broken Tangent on Twitch, I'm on there. It says that I stream Friday and Saturdays, but I don't right now. But there's lots of videos that I've saved on my page of critiques, speed demonstrations, 15, 30-minute pose demonstrations. I worked on the AnimX convention a couple of years ago where I did a talk on posing and how to pose. You can find that online. I've got a podcast, only 9 episodes, but I interviewed a bunch of it's hard to do a podcast. I'm with you right now, dude. I see the work you're doing. It's not easy. But I interviewed James McCoy, who was one of the animation directors in cinematics, Peter Lee, who's a longtime illustrator, concept artist for Blizzard. His style is freaking insane. Lana Bachowski, an animation artist, is now, I think, a lead animator at Riot. I've got a whole bunch of artists in there that you guys can check out. But it's been a long time since I've done a Twitch or a podcast. I want to do it again, though. Yeah. You're building the spark back into me for sure doing this. Yeah. Yeah. And what's funny is, like I told my wife, when I was doing the Twitch thing, I was doing it in our bedroom because I was living in a 2-bedroom place. 1 bedroom was me and my wife, the other one was the kids. And so to the left of me in Twitch was my sleeping wife every time that I would do Twitch, the poor thing, and she would suffer through it. So I told her, like, oh, I'd love to do Twitch when I finally have an office. And now we've moved to a spot where I have an office and I have yet to get back on Twitch and do it. So I need to, though. I miss it. I do. I miss it. And I'm sorely very rusty when it comes to Maya these days.
Whew. Okay, so let's talk about how important is networking in the industry.
Very important. It's a smaller industry than you know. Even though there's tens of thousands of artists and designers and engineers in video games, we all tend to work on similar studios, especially when you get into the AAA studios like EA, Blizzard, Riot, Obsidian, on the big studios that are making the God of Wars and the Last of Us, Naughty Dog. It's because great talent wants to work on great projects, and they are constantly. You'll be some interesting individuals in this career that only do contract because they love to bounce around and love to work on multiple things, and they love the stress of not having a job. I can't deal with that. And then you'll find people who love the stability of studios that have been at the studio for 20 plus years or whatever. Yeah. And you get to see all types of walks of life and different perspectives on making games in general. But getting to know all those individuals, and LinkedIn is another big thing to get into now. it's great when it comes to finding a job. I think in the video game industry and probably the special effects movie industry, it's the same. But if you know you've worked with somebody and they're a great person, you're going to want to advocate for them to work with you in some way. And you're not going to have that advocation unless you've talked to them, spoke to them, interacted with those people. So I know in this industry, there's a lot of introverts, which is fine. Yeah. Like being an introvert and socially awkward, that was me. That was all me through high school too. But this career is really a big safe spot for us nerds and us geeks and us weirdos that we think anime is the shit and no one knows good cartoons anymore. Yeah. But you're going to find those kindred spirits in this industry, and you'll make those connections, and those connections will become networks, and those networks will go to different studios. And if you're trying to get into a studio for the first time, you can talk to that network and go, hey, you got any entry level openings that you could recommend me for? You know, employee recommendations go a long way. So I think networking is huge. And if you're ever getting just sick and tired of applying to that designer position, that illustration concept position, like give QA a try. Don't be afraid to be a game tester. I know game testing gets a bad rap. Yeah, it does open, and it did for me. Like I got into game testing to get into animation. It doesn't, not usually the trail you pick. Usually you just go, I did art school. I was an animator in art school. I go to an animation job. No, I couldn't get an animation job right out of art school. So I went QA, and then I met a bunch of people in the industry by being in QA, which eventually got me my job in the cinematics, which eventually got me my job in the Heroes of the Storm. If it wasn't for a producer that I had worked with in cinematics who moved to Heroes of the Storm, I wouldn't have gotten the opportunity to go to that team after cinematics. Like it's a whole bunch of weird little dominoes you don't know behind the scenes of those networks that can do a lot of good things for you, for sure.
Yeah. I think that's what, like, if we reflect back to art school again, some of the connections we made there, even with those amazing teachers we had, some of those kicked in for some of us, and we can still reach out to them today.
You know who I miss?
Which one? Who? Sean
Fennell.
Oh, yeah.
I lost his contact. I don't know how to get in touch with him. I got in touch with him on what's that animation convention they do in Burbank?
Oh, Lightbox.
Not Lightbox, the other one. It's like CTN. CTN? Or CTX?
It's same thing, pretty much.
Same thing?
Yeah.
I caught him out there at a CTN a decade plus now. He was doing jiu-jitsu when I ran into him. We went and got ramen out in LA. But he was still working at DreamWorks at that point. He had just he moved from lighting. He wasn't doing lighting anymore, and he was like lead on crowds and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But that was a decade ago. I don't know where he went. I miss that dude. He was a good professor.
Yeah. So for you guys who don't know, a lot of the professors we talk about, you don't know. Sean Fennell actually came to us from Chicago.
Yeah.
Was a Maya expert, and at this point, while we were at the Artist 2, we were only using 3D Studio Max, and it was cool. But at the same time, we were learning as we're getting close to graduation that a lot of the studios have already transitioned over to Maya. So they brought in Sean, and Sean was this cool little skinny dude that was just a badass with the software, and we got the opportunity to pick his brain. And like Kurtis said, he ended up at DreamWorks because of connections that we've made through the school. And got to work on a lot of cool
Shark Tale.
Yeah, Shark's Tale, I think Shrek. So we reflect back, this networking thing really does good things if you're nice and good to people.
Yep. Yeah, don't burn bridges, y'all.
Man, people will take you anywhere.
Don't burn bridges. That's a big one.
Yeah. Because we've seen it firsthand. People burn, like in our circle, we've seen people burn bridges and they get rebuilt, but it's not an easy task to rebuild a bridge once you burn it. And
it's not the same.
Yeah, it's not the same. So more advice for you.
I love that you brought up that Sean was like, yeah, I don't know why you guys are using 3D Studio Max. Like no one uses Max anymore. Yeah. So with that thought, I am using nothing but Maya in cinematics, right?
Okay.
And when I move over to Heroes of the Storm, what are they using?
3D Studio Max.
3D Studio Max. Freaking 3D Studio Max. And I had to relearn again how biped works in 3D Studio Max. Oh, and the only reason, and you know what's funny is still to this day, I think World of Warcraft's engine is set up to where the animation files have to come from 3D Studio Max.
Oh, wow.
Because these are the animation files where they have one file and every animation is on that file. So the timeline is like 100,000 frames long.
Woo.
But what they've done, because none of the animators want to animate in 3D Studio Max, is they've made a plugin, a tool proprietary to the WoW team where they animated Maya, they hit a button, it spits it out to 3D Studio Max for that file, and then exports that file from Max into the game.
Wow.
Yeah. And Heroes, we were just stuck with a technical director who absolutely loved how 3D Studio Max worked and was not going to change to Maya over his dead body. So we had to deal with 3D Studio Max because he was, yes, sir, whatever you need me to do. Yeah, so I took my first 3 weeks on the Heroes of the Storm team was relearning how to animate in 3D Studio Max.
Wow. Yeah.
Good times.
It was fun to work with.
Lloyd, don't lie. No, it was not. Footsteps. Remember Footsteps? Stupidest thing
What
ever.
are you talking about? I learned how to animate an Unreal character in 3D Studio Max to Justin Timberlake's music. Like that character was dancing.
Yes, he was.
It was crazy, man. And it's crazy to see like the evolution of the software and
Yeah.
the bone engines and, like you said, the facial nodes and everything nowadays. It's just like, I go back and think, I'm like, dude, they were always teaching us to 3D model and be ready to animate low poly figures. And nowadays, what's low poly?
100,000 still. No, I mean, honestly, every character that we made on Heroes was made in Mudbox first. And those Mudbox models are hundreds of thousands, if not millions of polygons.
Yeah.
And then now we just bake it down.
Yeah.
Whatever bake it down means, all you character artists out there, you bake it down and the magic happens and it's ready for but that was something on Diablo. Our biggest pain point is performance, because in an AR RPG, if you ain't pushing 60 frames a second, you're dead. And if you're playing hardcore mode on Diablo, you're dead. So we had a lot of pressure from the technical art team to make sure that all of the assets, especially visual effects wise, were low poly, low memory, and just high performant. Because what's interesting about video games when you come to a big studio is you grow up, you go to school thinking that, you know, animation is king, animation is king, animation is king. And then you get to a studio where you've got 150 people work on the same project and you realize like, oh, I guess fun is king. Because if it's not fun, this ain't going to sell. If it ain't going to sell, your team's going to get cut.
Yeah.
It's sick, but in the end, it's money.
Yeah.
But what you'll find out is that animation and art becomes secondary and in some projects tertiary to the design and to the fun of the project. One of the questions I ask people that interview for QA on my team is, how do you determine whether something's fun or not?
Oh.
Explain to me how you would test something and tell that designer if it's fun or not. Because in the end, if it's not fun, we don't want to have it in the game. I don't care how cool your animation is. I don't care how sick your textures are. I don't care how dope that model is. If it ain't fun, people ain't going to care, and we're going to go on to the next 20 other games I released today.
Yeah.
It's a weird thought to kind of base everything down to, but I didn't realize that until 15 years into Blizzard of like, oh, I guess no one really cares about animation but the animation department. Huh.
Everybody else wants it to be that fun interactive game that no one stops playing.
Yeah. And for us, I'll say from the Heroes perspective, we were always chasing League of Legends. Yeah. So if we're not engaging the community that we need to get League of Legends numbers, like, what are we doing? Yeah. Like, I don't care how cool your bunker animation is for the fire bat, dude. Ain't nobody playing them because they're playing League of Legends and it's more fun. Like, in the end, it comes down to, is your game fun? And as a developer, how do I make my game fun? And how do I get that want for players to always come back in and play?
Yeah.
It's a different thinking, because I think when we're in school, we're so focused on getting us good and getting us perfect in this discipline that we want to be perfect at. But then you get out into the real world, it's like, oh, I'm more of a support. Art is more of a support to design, to make the design more fun and look attractive. And we're not really the star of the show. And it took me a long time to kind of separate those two. Like, oh, I guess really doesn't have to be super cool. Because you look at, what's the game I just bought? Vampire Survivors. Have you heard of this game?
Oh,
dude. It's all those out there playing it. Basically, you've heard of a genre called bullet hell.
yeah.
Well, usually in bullet hell genres, you're dodging the bullets, right, in the game, and you're shooting the people trying to dodge all these bullets. In Vampire Survivors, you are the bullet hell, and you're trying to power up. So you basically are just like shooting things everywhere, and killing demons at the same time. And the goal is you can basically stand still and not click a button, and all your spells and effects are just going off everywhere. It's fun and it's super awesome, but it's very low poly and very low budget and 16-bit. And those types of games, you go like, that's what it is. It's finding a fun thing and building around that fun thing, and not just working on my fun animation or working on my fun concept art. It's building around a concept and supporting that concept to make something good. I think that's kind of the takeaway I've learned.
That way, like to look at it.
Yeah, look at what's that Super Meat Boy that got all popular way back in the day. Horrible graphics, like 16-bit, made by two dudes in a basement, but the premise and the gameplay was super fun and addicting. It didn't matter how terribly gross half of those graphics were. Right? It's an interesting concept in this career. Is like, because what should teams focus on? Should it be the art? Should it be the story? Should it be the design? Should it be the voiceover work where I hire Samuel L. Jackson as this voice actor and, Ben Kingsley as this voice actor? Is that going to attract the crowds? Like, it's a different type of concept when you start getting into games that are making money. And now that I'm in the management side, it's kind of, I've looked way too much behind the curtain on this subject now, because now I'm in the world of like budgets and resources and all this other stuff. But you really learn as you get older in this industry of like what is making you stay and what you want to work on to leave that legacy and kind of leave your mark on that project. So you can go like, that's mine. Like, in that awesome project, I did this, and this. It's awesome. You don't notice it because it fits in seamlessly, and that's the point, right? If you do good animation, good artwork, it doesn't get noticed because it's just seamless and it's just there.
But you do yourself, you did it, and you're like attached to that fun.
100%.
It's crazy. That is crazy.
Yeah, that's old man talk right there, man. And I'm back when I used to test on paper.
I used to have to use whiteout and a pen when I made a mistake.
Yes.
It's crazy.
I used to not be able to talk to developers because there is a clear distinction between a QA analyst and a developer, right? Back then, we were seen as the scum of the earth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're just these high school kids just churning through. Yeah, they're just testing games, and everyone's seen that Groundless Boy movie, right?
Yeah.
High score, what's that mean? That's kind of like what the QA feeling was back in the early 2000s. It was just like, we're a bunch of high school brats that are just playing games and talking trash in the dark dungeon. But now we have our testers sitting with the designers, sitting with the artists. I'm in with the producer meetings. I'm talking to the lead game designer about feedback I want to give them on this system that looks messed up. Or maybe my testers are telling me that something's broken, but this designer thinks that's working as intended, and I need to explain to them the QA reasoning on how a player might find this wrong. Yeah, dude, I'm all up in it in weird ways now. It's been a crazy adventure where I feel like I'm having a lot of impact now at this lead level, even though I'm not making art, which I still feel a void in. But I'm still able to like help and contribute and grow people, and make them better, which in turn makes the game better because they're giving better feedback and finding better bugs and all that good stuff. But yeah, I've completely 180'd on myself here.
It's crazy.
Yeah. Not something I expected. Never thought I'd be back in QA once I got out. Thought I was done.
Well, yeah, because if you reflect back to, like you said, Grandma's Boy and like the original stories of being in QA, it was always like a dark dungeon. Like you're in there hours and hours and hours, and now, like you just said, it's all intertwined. They're sitting with the designer, the animator, telling them, you did this. This is what's happening here because of your animation, and it's like intertwined and cohesive so that the fun continues and you guys all have jobs.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's to a point now where we're using the engine with the developers. So we'll go into the engine and show them like, hey, you forgot to hit this checkbox here, dummy. Without that checkbox now, it has no collision, right? So this project that I'm on currently, I can't talk much about it, but we are forcing our testers to be in engine, looking at things from the designer, from the artist perspective. And it helps us in multiple ways. The biggest way, instead of like finding like, oh, well, you click this button and it crashes. Well, now that I'm in the engine, I can see the layers behind that button click of like, oh, when you click that button, it's calling this thing over here. And now we can write up our bugs more intellectually. Like, and we know all the steps now. Like, oh, this system breaks because it's accessing this system over here. And we know because we are in the engine with the developers who are making it in that same engine. It's come a long way. I remember when I found my first crash in World of Warcraft, old school World of Warcraft, I'd have to tell my manager. My manager would have to call the producer upstairs. The producer would have to go get the artist or the designer that made it. Then they'd come downstairs and I'll huddle around my desk. All 5 of these people. I'd have to reproduce the bug because I can't talk to them. Yeah. So I just got to shut my mouth and reproduce the bug and go, it crashed. And then they'd go off and fix it. And that was my interaction with development. Now I'm in like sprint planning meetings, triage meetings, feedback meetings, feedback sessions, playtest runs, director playtest runs. Like we are in everything now.
It's crazy.
Which is awesome.
To like hear the evolution of the industry in itself.
Yeah.
Because how else are students going to hear these stories other than tap it into the actual connection?
Yep.
So, man. Okay, so we've been talking, dude. We've been talking, and we got lives.
Yes. Yes.
So before
you got school tomorrow? You doing Saturday schools?
No, I got mechanic work tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Oh.
Yeah. Guess what? I started a new career. Not just kidding.
Yeah, jump in, brother. Good money.
But as we get to the point where I'm going to wrap it up, because I know my wife's waiting, your wife's waiting.
My wife's sleeping at this point, dog.
Mine is probably 2.
Yeah. It's just like, what are you doing tonight? Podcast. I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
In your 180 journey, in this story so far, what's one of the coolest moments you've had in this industry so far? Is it the years at Blizzard, and each so many years you get this cool piece of Blizzard that gets given to you? Or is there something that just stands out as like, this is like epic?
There's a lot of moments. I think if I step back and look at where I've been and what I've accomplished, I think that within itself is pretty epic. To still be at one company my entire career in a very, for lack of a better word, volatile industry right now, where layoffs are happening what feels like every other month at this point. I'm just blessed to be at Blizzard for 21 years, not knowing that was going to be my home for that long. That's one of my biggest accomplishments, I think, is just being able to stay somewhere that long in the industry where it's very typical to be like, oh, I'm laid off year and a half in, or oh, that project's done and released, and they cut a third of the team because that's just what we do, right? On top of that, man, I've had so many cool moments. Like the first time I worked at BlizzCon as a Blizzard employee, and I was just on the floor watching them play the game that I helped make, was a trip. Like I teleported back to 13-year-old me loading up StarCraft 1 for the first time and looking at those pre-render cinematics going like, how the fuck did they make that? That is so awesome. And now here I am standing in a crowd of 10,000 people playing the game that I just helped animate on, and I'm like, whoa. That moment was crazy. The moment where I got to do my first like autograph signature signing, sit at a booth, and just people come up and sign a poster of the game that you worked on and ask you what you did and what capacity of the game that you worked on. And, oh, I remember that. That's awesome. Thank you for doing that. And like them thanking you for work that you did was a cool experience. Yeah. When the World of Warcraft opening, I got to go to the Fries that night, and we were expecting, I think we expected 100 people to maybe show up for that signing. And then as I pull up, the line is wrapped twice around the Fries building. And I thought I was in the wrong place. I'm like, is this what we're signing for this weird video game that I just made? What, this MMORPG thing must be a hit. That was surreal. A lot of BlizzCon moments have been surreal, like watching concerts for a game that I worked on, like watching Ozzy Osbourne play, watching Metallica play, for watching Tenacious D at a BlizzCon for a company that I worked for was mind-blowing. Having the experience of the South Park stuff, I had a brief, like, I was in cinematics and they were working on that South Park episode, so I got to kind of see the work in progress stuff as they were building it. Okay. But I knew the guy that they developed the big fat dude over, like the guy on the desk who goes the Sword of 1,000 Truths with the glasses. That's legit mimic of the guy that worked on the project, Joey. Yeah, and he was that dude. I mean, over exaggerated, but of course, to a T. So that was a surreal experience of like, why am I even looking at South Park stuff in a video game? What else, man? I'm trying to think. Game announcements have been crazy. So working at 20 years at a game company, you get a lot of t-shirts. I think all of my wardrobe is a Blizzard t-shirt of some sort. So I put these on, not thinking about it half the time, and I'll go out into the public. I was at Disneyland wearing a Blizzard jacket, and we were in a store looking at clothes or whatever. And from across the way, some gentleman was like, I really want that dude's jacket, and was pointing at me. It's like, what are you talking about? Oh, you play Blizzard games? And it became this weird, like, once World of Warcraft released, for lack of a better term, it was like a rock star feeling for a little bit, because people would call you out in public if I was wearing a World of Warcraft shirt and like, you work at Blizzard? You work at Blizzard? And it'd just be a whole thing. And Allie, my wife, still this day finds it weird when people come up and talk to me about video games. I went to a hardcore metal show last year, this band called Knock Loose, where I, again, not thinking about it, had a Blizzard jacket on, but I'm in the back of my thing, listening to some metal music. And this kid walks up next to me, couldn't have been older than this 22, 23. And was like, hey, no one else in here wearing a video game shirt like you, dude. I'm like, oh, yeah. I'm sorry, this is the only jacket I had. It's like, do you work at Blizzard? Do you work at Blizzard? yeah, I work there, and I'm the old guy here at this show. And this kid's like, yo, I have so many great memories of playing Diablo with my dad before he would go to like deployments in the military. And I was like, that's freaking awesome, kid. Like, tell me all about it. And we just jammed for like 10 or 15 minutes about his experiences playing games with his dad. And I get these weird interactions in public now that I would never expect to happen. And I think that's a cool thing about this that I never would have thought of. Even after all the bad things went down with Blizzard, I still get hit up about how do you work there? How do you get in the industry? Especially, that's a lot of the older generation. I get a lot of those questions like, how do you even get into video games? How do you make money at what you do? That's not even a thing, because every older generation is like, I want my kids outside and doing something active, get into a union, get into a trade, not get into art. Art's the last thing people want to get into. But I've been fortunate to have a lot of great interactions with people that I never would have talked to, I think, in another timeline if I was working at playing baseball, let's say, if I was fulfilling that dream. So it's gonna be a lot of cool opportunities I never expected. Again, talking on podcasts like this, going on to where did we go? We went to Burbank. They had the Overwatch shows out there. We got to go check out the Burbank studio and go watch the Overwatch teams play. They flying me out to Austin. Almost got flown out to Shanghai. As we're working, Blizzard's getting back into China right now. World of Warcraft just released in China again. Okay. So I've gotten to work on, different localized builds. Like, got to work on German builds, Portuguese builds, simplified Chinese builds, and test local strings, and then animate German lip sync and Chinese lip sync and all that type of stuff. So it's been giving me a lot of cool opportunities.
Man, it's funny because, like, you threw out Metallica, Tenacious D. Like, dang,
dude.
But to me, like, I think it's the teacher in me that the kid and his dad playing Diablo like hits.
Yeah.
Tenacious D, cool.
Yeah.
Metallica, cool. But then it's not like Jack Black walked up to you, was like, dude, I was playing 10 hours of Diablo last night. Like,
yeah.
But
no,
it's just, it's that one hits. I was just like, dang.
I will say that both Jack Black and Kyle wore a Murloc onesie when they played that ship, and it was amazing as you think it would be. That was by far the best BlizzCon concert, was Tenacious D for me. Foo Fighters was pretty damn good. Muse was also very good. Weird Al was Weird Al, but Tenacious D in that video game setting was like the most perfect band you could have to play for that crowd.
I could see that.
Metallica was just like, I'm getting paid. Like, I'm here. I'm not really into it. Blink-182 was trash. You could totally tell they weren't into it. But that's Blink-182 Stitch. Like, every time I've ever seen them live, it's punk rock. It's never quite on. It's a little off. Yeah. Whatever. But Tenacious D, man. The best. The best. So yeah, I don't know if I've given you all the info you wanted, though. Is there any more questions I can answer that I haven't hit up?
No, like I said,
like, shut up, Kurt.
Jedi mind trick you into like answering the questions that, like, I already had in queue to ask you, and it's cool because it was more this flowed. Excuse, English is a hard language,
especially past 10 o'clock.
Having a conversation, like, no, like we got to hang out, and we're like, dude, kind of jealous. Tenacious D.
Yeah. I've seen more live shows at BlizzCon than I have in my last 10 years. It's sick.
That's crazy. So what I do to wrap the stream up or wrap up our conversation is I switch the camera and you go full screen. Like, I am in the bottom little corner, tiny. And you're going to drop whatever social media platform, LinkedIn, information that you want so that these people can go find you and ask you more questions.
Okay.
You said so many stories, and they're going to be like, whoa, I got a question.
Yeah. Okay, let me bring up all my social media so I remember them all. Okay, let me do, what is it, X?
You forgetting all your stuff.
Dude, it's been a hot minute.
You're just the broken tangent.
I am just a broken tangent, but you know what's messed up, though? I didn't hop on the broken tangent fast enough. So on some platforms, I'm broken tangent. On other platforms, I'm the broken tangent. I just got to remember what ones I don't have the.
All right, you're full screen. The show's all yours. Rock out. Let us know how to get a hold of Mr. Kurtis.
Hey, what's happening, everybody? Thank you again for having me on. This was a great conversation. I hope that this is successful and you got some good information out of this. If you want to hit me up on the social media, on X, I'm at Broken Tangent. On twitch.tv, I'm the_broken_tangent on Twitch. I wish I twitched and streamed more than I do now, but it's been a minute. But again, you can find informational videos and links to my podcast within there. If you want to go to my podcast, the podcast is called, oh shoot, Pablo.
That's gonna.
Yeah. Oh shoot, Pablo. I'm not. The podcast is called The Broken Tangent Animation Podcast. You can find it on Spotify. There's about 9 episodes on there. Not a lot, but you could listen to some interviews of me and some buddies and some friends, other fellow artists, animators, illustrators, designers, sound designers, a whole bunch of people. And I talk more about how they get their start in the industry, so that others can hear stories of how people got their start in the industry, because everybody's start is different.
Yes, it is.
You're not going to get into it the way you think, and usually it's a network or it's a random conversation you have that starts it all. So my podcast focuses on that. You can find that on Spotify and Apple, anywhere you get your podcast from. Otherwise, dude, thank you all for your time. And if you got this far in the podcast, you're awesome, and we appreciate you. Because this has been a long spew by myself, and I apologize for just blabbing the whole time. But hopefully you got something out of it.
That's part of it. That's always the goal.
Yes. But hit us up. We around. I'm here to help, support. I know how scary it can be getting out of high school, out of college, into the working world. And if video games and special effects is what you want to do, hit us up. We can hopefully help support you through it.
There you guys have it. That's the Broken Tangent. That's Kurtis.
Love y'all. Be good to each other.